If you look at the news coming out of Washington this morning, you might think you're seeing just another trade dispute, another angry tweet, another threat. But if you look at what's happening in Ottawa, if you look at the papers sitting on Mark Carney's desk right now, you realize this is something else entirely. This isn't a dispute, it's a divorce. Donald Trump tried to corner Canada. He thought he could bully his northern neighbor into submission like he does with everyone else. He thought the old playbook would work. But Mark Carney didn't blink. He didn't shout. He didn't negotiate. He just reached for a lever that no Canadian prime minister has ever dared to touch. And when he pulled it, the floor dropped out from under the White House. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what changed overnight. I'm going to show you why the markets are flashing red, why Trump is suddenly very quiet about winning, and why the price of the phone in your pocket is about to go up because of a mistake made in the Oval Office. You are watching history shift, and the United States is no longer driving the car. Let's strip away the noise and look at the raw facts of what happened in the last 12 hours. It started at 2 a.m. Eastern. Donald Trump, frustrated by Canada's refusal to bend on border sovereignty and digital tax laws, hit send on a directive that stunned his own advisors. He announced a blanket 25% compliance tariff on every single product crossing the Canadian border: oil, lumber, cars, aluminum, everything. His goal was simple: panic. He wanted to crash the Canadian dollar, force a rush on the banks, and make Carney beg for a meeting at Mar-a-Lago by lunchtime. That was the plan. That's always the plan. Create chaos, then sell the solution. But here is where the script flipped. At 8 a.m., Mark Carney walked to the podium in Ottawa. There was no panic in his eyes. There was no shouting. He didn't even mention the tariff. Instead, he announced the activation of something called the Strategic Resource Protocol. Basically, Canada just turned off the tap, not the oil tap. That's too messy. He turned off the future. Carney announced that, effective immediately, Canada is redirecting its critical mineral exports, lithium, cobalt, uranium, away from U.S. supply chains and into locked 10-year exclusive contracts with the European Union and Japan. He didn't fight the tariff. He just made it irrelevant. He told the United States, if you don't want to trade fairly, we will take the building blocks of the 21st century economy and sell them to your competitors. And the shockwave hit Washington instantly. This wasn't a trade war move. This was a geopolitical checkmate. You need to see the proof to understand the scale of this miscalculation by Trump, because the media is going to tell you this is both sides. It is not both sides. One side threw a rock, the other side dropped a mountain. Receipt number 1, the market spasm. Look at the charts from the opening bell on Wall Street today. Specifically, look at the tech sector and the auto sector. Ford, GM, Tesla, Apple. They didn't dip, they tumbled. Why? Because these companies know what you might not know. Canada isn't just a nice neighbor. Canada is the supply closet for American manufacturing. When Carney announced that critical minerals were being prioritized for reliable partners, code for not Trump, algorithms on Wall Street instantly calculated the cost. If U.S. companies have to source their battery metals from China or Africa instead of Canada, their costs go up by 30, maybe 40%. The market realized in seconds what Trump hasn't realized in 4 years. You need Canada more than Canada needs you. Receipt number 2. The Port of Vancouver data. We have satellite data and shipping manifests from the Port of Vancouver from just 3 hours ago. Usually you see a massive flow of goods heading south by rail and truck into Washington state. Today, we are seeing a redirect. Reports are coming in of cargo allocations being shifted. Ships that were flagged for potential U.S. transfer are being held. This is the Strategic Resource Protocol in action. It's not a blockade. That's an act of war. It's a review. It's bureaucratic jujitsu. Carney is using the exact same national security excuse Trump uses, but he's using it to legally pause shipments of vital goods to the U.S. Receipt number 3. The phone call leaks. Sources inside the State Department are leaking like a sieve right now. Allegedly, there was a frantic call from the U.S. Commerce Secretary to Ottawa at 9:30 a.m. They wanted to know if the mineral pause included defense contractors. The answer from Ottawa: we are currently reviewing all export permits to ensuring they align with our national interest. That is diplomatic speak, for we'll get back to you when we feel like it. Do you understand the power dynamic shift here? Usually it's the U.S. making the threats and Canada checking the fine print. Today, the White House is the one sweating on the phone line, waiting for an operator to pick up. Receipt number 4, the joint statement. And this is the nail in the coffin. While Trump was posting angry messages about ungrateful Canada, a joint statement was released from Brussels and Ottawa. The President of the European Commission and Mark Carney issued a declaration of critical alliance. They didn't just shake hands, they signed a framework that integrates Canada's resource grid with Europe's industrial base. This proves Carney had this ready. He didn't write this plan this morning. He has been waiting for Trump to make a mistake. He's been keeping this weapon under the desk, waiting for the moment Trump tried to cross the line. Trump crossed it. And now the bridge is burning. You have to look at why Trump is spiraling. You can see it in the frequency of the posts. You can see it in the frantic press briefings where the press secretary refuses to answer questions about supply chains. Trump is losing control because he is a player who only knows one game: leverage. His entire worldview is based on the idea that America is the biggest room in the house, so everyone has to listen to him. He thinks leverage is about size. He thinks because the U.S. economy is 10 times bigger than Canada's, he wins by default. But that's 1980s thinking. That's real estate developer thinking. In the modern world, leverage isn't about size. It's about choke points. Trump doesn't understand that he just handed Carney the moral high ground and the economic trigger at the same time. By threatening a 25% tariff, Trump broke the USMCA agreement. He broke the rules. This gave Carney the legal right to retaliate. But instead of just taxing bourbon or ketchup, which is what Trump expected, Carney attacked the choke point. Trump is reactive. He wakes up, watches TV, gets mad, and issues an order. He assumes the other side will panic. But what happens when the other side doesn't panic? What happens when the other side is led by a guy who ran the Bank of England? A guy who understands global finance better than Trump understands his own golf courses. Carney isn't playing to the crowd. He's playing to the system. Trump is losing control because the business class in America, the donors, the CEOs, the factory owners are turning on him. They are calling the White House right now screaming. They are saying, you cannot fight a trade war with Canada. We share an electricity grid. We share pipelines. We share auto plants. Trump thought he was punishing a subordinate. Instead, he just threw a wrench into his own engine. And now that the engine is smoking, he doesn't know how to fix it because he fired all the mechanics. He's isolated. The Europeans are laughing. The Canadians are standing tall. And the American voter is about to wonder why their grocery bill and their gas bill just went up again. We need to talk about Mark Carney. Whatever you think of his politics, you have to admire the execution. This is not how Canadian prime ministers usually behave. Historically, the Canadian strategy has been keep your head down, smile, and hope the Americans don't notice us. Carney has shredded that playbook. His move is different because it is asymmetric. Symmetric warfare is you slap me, I slap you. You tax my steel, I tax your bourbon. That's a losing game for Canada because the U.S. is bigger. Canada runs out of cheeks to slap. Carney went asymmetric. He said, you tax my steel. Fine, I will starve your technology sector. He moved the conflict to a domain where Canada has the advantage. Canada has the resources the world needs for the green transition. The U.S. is desperate for these resources to compete with China. By locking those resources away, Carney is hitting Trump where he is weakest. It's also different because it's quiet. Notice the tone. Trump is loud. Carney is silent. Trump uses caps lock. Carney uses contracts. There's a terrifying competence to what Ottawa is doing. They aren't burning flags. They aren't holding rallies. They are just quietly rerouting the plumbing of the global economy to bypass the United States. This is a signal to the world. Carney is telling Europe, Japan, and the UK, America is unstable. We are stable. Do business with us. He is positioning Canada not as America's little brother. but as the adult alternative. He is betting that the world is tired of the chaos coming out of Washington. And looking at the markets today, he's right. He's turning pressure into power. He's taking Trump's aggression and using it as proof that Canada needs to be independent. He's solving Canada's decades-old problem of being too reliant on the U.S. by using Trump as the excuse to break away. It's brilliant and it's dangerous. So what does this mean for you? Maybe you're sitting in Ohio or Texas, or maybe you're watching this from Toronto or Calgary. Why does this matter to your life? If you are in the United States, this is a wake-up call. The era of cheap, easy access to Canadian resources is over. Trump just ended it. This means prices are going to rise, not just for cars, but for housing. Lumber comes from Canada. For energy, oil comes from Canada. For food, fertilizer comes from Canada. If this standoff continues, the inflation that Trump promised to fix is going to come roaring back, driven by supply shocks from the north. But the bigger implication is about safety. For 70 years, the U.S. and Canada have been virtually the same security zone. NORAD, the border, intelligence sharing. If Carney is willing to cut economic ties, how far does this go? Are we looking at a future where Canada stops sharing intelligence, where the northern border becomes a hard border? For Canadians, this is the moment of truth. This is the moment where you find out if your country is sovereign or if it's a vassal state. Carney is betting the farm that Canada can stand on its own 2 feet. If he fails, the Canadian economy crashes. If he succeeds, Canada emerges as a true middle power independent of Washington. And globally, this signals the end of the North American fortress. The continent is cracking. Investors see it, generals see it. When you break the trust between the U.S. and Canada, you break the foundation of Western security. And Trump is taking a sledgehammer to that foundation because he thinks it makes him look tough. There was a moment during the press conference that captured everything. A reporter asked Carney, "Mr. Prime Minister, aren't you afraid of provoking the president? What if he closes the border completely?" Carney stopped. He took off his glasses. He looked directly into the camera, not at the reporter, but at the lens. And he said very quietly, "The border is a line on a map. The economy is a web of trust. The president can close the line, but he has already broken the trust. We are simply moving on." He put his glasses back on and walked away. That's the moment. We are simply moving on. It wasn't a threat. It was a goodbye. Now we enter the danger zone because Trump doesn't know how to lose. Scenario A, the most likely outcome. Trump doubles down. He rages. He announces sanctions on individual Canadian officials. He tries to ban Canadian snowbirds from Florida. It gets petty, but the markets force his hand. The S&P 500 drops another 5%, and the donors force him to carve out exemptions to his tariffs. He claims victory, saying he fixed the deal, but quietly the tariffs are removed. But the damage is done. Canada keeps its new contracts with Europe. Scenario B, escalation. This is the scary one. Trump declares a national emergency. He orders the seizure of Canadian assets in the U.S. or tries to forcefully inspect every truck. The border gridlocks, food rots and trailers, auto plants in Michigan shut down within 48 hours because they don't have parts. We see layoffs in the U.S. Midwest. Carney responds by freezing U.S. tech assets in Canada. It becomes a full-blown economic Cold War. Scenario C, the reversal. Trump realizes he stepped in a bear trap. He fires a scapegoat advisor, blames the deep state for the tariff idea, and tries to pivot to attacking China or Mexico instead, pretending the Canada fight never happened. But here is the problem with Scenario C. You can't unring the bell. Carney isn't going to tear up those contracts with Europe just because Trump changes his mind. The shift has happened. Canada has started looking east and west instead of just south. This is the part where leaders usually calm it down. But Trump doesn't do calm, and Carney isn't backing down. We are watching a game of chicken between a bulldozer and a high-speed train. The bulldozer is big, but the train has momentum. And right now, the train is not slowing down. This is not just news. This is the realignment of the Western world. Canada has decided that the cost of being America's friend is too high under Donald Trump, and the U.S. is about to find out exactly how expensive it is to have Canada as an enemy. Carney played the card. Everyone was afraid to play. He said no. Now the question is, will Trump burn the house down because he can't get his way? Or have we finally seen the limit of his power? I want to know what you think. Is Mark Carney protecting Canada's future, or is he taking a gamble that's going to destroy the Canadian economy? Is Trump strong, or did he just get outplayed? Drop your take in the comments. I'm reading them. And listen, if you want to know what happens when the markets open tomorrow, and if you want the updates that the mainstream news is too scared to cover, hit that subscribe button. The world is shifting fast. Don't get left behind. I'll see you in the next one.